Welcome back to the Knick-Knack Review. Today we're looking at the movie The Suicide Squad. Let's get started. Just a warning, this is a spoiler-filled review, but just in case you don't want to hear certain things. Now this movie starts out in probably the most James Gunn way possible. Great music and Michael Rooker. Now this movie banks on that you've seen the first movie already. So you kind of know the whole plot, why the Suicide Squad was invented, what they're there for, Amanda Wallace character and everything. So they don't have to literally explain all that stuff they did in the first movie. This movie is definitely a soft reboot of sorts, but at the same time a sequel. And you can say a soft reboot because there are some of the same characters from the first movie, but not all of them return. This movie introduces a totally different team, some in the beginning and then some later. Not that you should really get attached to any of them. They are the Suicide Squad after all. The movie really earns its title in the opening scenes. So this movie also replaces Will Smith's character, who has a daughter and has good aim, with another guy who has a daughter and has good aim. Not really sure why they replaced him. I don't know why he didn't come back for the sequel. Maybe because it didn't perform as well. I didn't really look into it, but he didn't return, and I think he was probably the best quality of the first movie, even though I was not really supportive of him being in the first. He was easily the best part of it, and he's not in this one. So now we have Idris Elba, which I am a fan of. So if you couldn't get Will Smith, I'm glad you were able to get this guy. Harley Quinn is back in the film, basically as Harley Quinn. Everything you expected from the first movie, she's in this movie as well, with the exception of no Joker, which actually I'm not that upset about. She actually ends up getting captured somewhere in the middle of the film and after the first mission. And so the Suicide Squad, the second unit, get ordered to go rescue her and Rick Flag. That turns into a mission to destroy Project Jotunheim, which ends up turning into a mission to destroy this huge monster starfish called Starro, who has these face hugger mini-me's that latch onto your face and control you, and he's able to communicate with you through telekinesis through those little face huggers. And yeah, that's it. This movie is easily 3 movies into one movie. Each of those missions could have easily been its own movie, could have fleshed it out a little more, but they put all of them in there, and it kind of gave me that Batman Superman vibe, to where it was, like just too much in one movie, but they did it anyway. Considering James Gunn is in the driver's seat, I was a little surprised they did it that way. And I will give them this, considering they did it that way, they did a pretty good job. James Gunn is a smart man. He's a great filmmaker. Considering all that content that he put out, he did a really good job. I just feel like they should not have had as much in the movie. You're already balancing a huge cast, and then you got a lot of story, and it just felt like a little bit too much. And I don't mean in the same sense as, say, Avengers Endgame, but that movie took 11 years to come to fruition. So you were familiar with everything, whereas this was like, oh wait, who's that? Who's that? What's this? And oh, now this? Yeah, so it kind of gave me that feel. For instance, the monster in the end, Starro, that easily could have, even though it was the main villain at the end, it could have easily had a full-fleshed story that instead of what it got. I will say this, the cast of the Suicide Squad, the new ones anyway, I feel they did really well on their own. Meaning, when they were talking maybe 1 or 2, or they had their own screen time, I think they did really well. They did good acting. They fleshed out their character more, and there was no problem. However, when they were all together, for me at least, I did not see a lot of chemistry between all of them. You had John Cena and Idris Elba come together, and they had some good on-screen moments together, but I can't say that all of them really mended like those two, or say like Shark King and Rat Girl, whatever her name was. Now, one thing I did like about this movie is that the Suicide Squad actually have their own Avengers, we have a Hulk moment with King Shark. Elba is basically telling the team, hey, you go here, you do that. And he looks at King Shark and he's just like, hey, you see that? Num num. I got to give props to Sylvester Stallone for actually being the voice of King Shark. He did a great job, considering the only King Shark that I'm familiar with as far as any kind of live action would be from The Flash. You have a different version of that, or from that, in this movie, and he's definitely more comedic. He's more of a childlike character, and regardless of faithfulness to the comic books or not, I actually preferred the one from The Flash. However, this one was still enjoyable. It still looked good, and Stallone was hilarious as King Shark. I would have never guessed to place him as King Shark in general, and it worked out really well. This movie is very, very different from the first film. However, it, unfortunately for me, does suffer some of the same setbacks. Like I said before, not all of them had good chemistry together, but there were a lot of characters that even if their powers were impressive, a little bit memorable, the character themselves were really not. And I found myself not really caring for some of the characters I should have been caring for. You can tell they wanted to make this character this way and that character that way, but I ended up not caring about either one and just wanted to see what that character was doing way over there. Regardless of how many characters there were on screen, you really didn't get attached to any of them, at least I didn't. And I feel like that was a really big setback because, look, Marvel took a really big chance with Guardians of the Galaxy and James Gunn, and it worked out so well. DC did the exact same thing. They took James Gunn and they took a chance on Suicide Squad again. It just did not have the same impact as, say, Guardians. With Guardians, granted, you have less characters to deal with. However, they're all memorable. And even some of the characters that were not main characters, you still remembered them. Heck, they were in the Suicide Squad as either cameos or different characters completely, so you didn't know it was them right away. Now, the humor in this movie, I will say, it was better than the first one, and it's definitely James Gunn humor. Right off the bat, you can tell from the first scene, you can tell it was James Gunn directing this movie. Well, from the humor, from the camera angles to everything. I mean, it's literally saturated with James Gunn. And I remember saying that on the trailer review. And it's not a bad thing because I am a fan of his, but the humor was there. I'll give him that. However, it was not as funny as I feel like it could have been, considering they were definitely trying to distance themselves from the first one. Every scene with Harley was funny, was what you would expect from Harley. In fact, she didn't really change much at all. If anything, she got better than what she was in Birds of Prey. And when it comes to the special effects, I thought they were great. Especially the in-fight scene with Starro, that was absolutely incredible. Every bit of detail that went into that big starfish was absolutely incredible. It was amazing. And with King Shark, not one scene really truly looked CGI. I mean, because they didn't really make him do a lot of things that would really kind of expose, I guess, the computer-generated graphics. And it just, they took their time with him, and it paid off really well. And even the, I forgot that rat character in the beginning. That character actually looked really good. I think it was a weasel. And that character looked like somebody in a rat suit, but of course you can tell with the facial expressions that it was not like an animatronic or a mask, but the whole thing came out really well. And I think the visuals were great. I will say this about the movie. There was nothing that actually stood out for me. There was nothing memorable, and there was nothing that will make me want to watch this over and over again. However, I will give credit where credit is due, and I thought it was a big improvement from the first film. The humor was good, the effects were great, and the cast was, while they didn't have the best chemistry in my opinion, they were definitely improvement as well. I can't say anything bad about their acting individually. And I will give John Cena credit for actually improving in his acting because I think he deserves it. He does a great job in this film, so bravo. All in all, I would give this movie a rating of wait for home video release. Well, that about does it for me, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this movie. Was it better than the first one, or was it worse, or was it just the same? Also, let me know what you think of the channel, and if there's any other movies you'd like me to review, let me know. And while you're there, don't forget to, well, you know what to do. As always, I am Clint the Knickknack, and I will see you on the next one.